into this Yee, but also get ready for the next hilarious PayPal campaign that's happening with Will Ferrell singing his rendition of Fleetwood Mac's "You Can Go Your Own Way." That's how, in a bathtub. I sing terribly, but I still do it. But you can check out the teaser tonight and the commercial during basketball games this weekend. Now let's talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his remarks this week. He talked about how autism destroys children and doesn't allow them to be able to do a lot of different things, like hold a job, write a poem, play baseball, go on a date, all of those things. And Holly Robinson Peete is chiming in. This is something she's passionate about because her son was diagnosed with autism at 3 years old, is now 27 years old. And here's what that sounded like.
Autism is not a disease. It is a disorder. And it is important to get that right if you are the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So that off the top really triggered me. When our son was diagnosed in 2000 at 3 years old, we called it the never day. Why? Because this developmental pediatrician rolled out a laundry list of nevers that RJ would never do, never be, never have, never achieve. She said he would never have friends, never say I love you, never play team sports. When the Secretary of Health and Human Services just ran off another never list, it triggered me in ways I can't even describe.
Wow. I mean, well said. And that's from somebody who has been dealing with this and been an advocate for so long.
The best people that we find in politics, Angela, are those who are triggered by personal experience. People who have actually been affected by something are usually your best activists. One of the training that we'll talk about in a little bit, the training that I do is how to be an activist or an organizer. So shout out to Holly for continuing to push the message about autism, making sure that people understand it, and that personal experience is going to keep her was motivated. And he misspoke. He tried to clean it up, and say that wasn't what he was talking about. But you need to be clear.
Right.
When you are jumping out here on this microphone and saying whatever you want to say and, basically stigmatizing a group who's already stigmatized, you need to be clear, about that messaging.
And, he also made these remarks at a news conference on Wednesday. He was talking about new data from the CDC that showed autism diagnosis among children in the U.S. have continued to rise. But what people have said is that is because it's actually broadened criteria, increased awareness, better screening. So it's not that it's something that's necessarily rising. It's just being diagnosed more.
And there's always going to be some back and forth about that. We see that as well with ADHD. With 20 years ago, people weren't calling it ADHD. Just like, oh, you just got a kid that just can't sit down. So that could be argued on both sides of the argument, on both sides of the issue. Is it just more diagnosis, or is there an uprising in it? I'm here for the research to find out either or. Either or, if it's getting us to the solution of the problem and reducing it, I'm here for it. The issue is, though, we have to be accurate with our information. We have to make sure that we're not putting out misinformation and stigmatizing. And I think that's the overall issue that Holly has.
And it's also interesting. There's higher rates of autism among Black, Hispanic, and Asian American children than among white children.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it really is, or if they're being diagnosed more and being told that more.
Well,
or if it's in the foods that we're eating, because that's also a conversation.
Yeah, well, it's called environmental racism. I mean, it is a real thing. When we talk about the Flint water crisis, just to give an example, on that water and those chemicals and how does that affect, Black and brown children, it's a real thing. When we talk about cancer,
fibroids for Black women.
Absolutely. When we talk about cancer and people who are exposed to areas that are that have toxic fumes that you're not going to see in certain communities. So it's a real thing. It's a real issue for those who are interested in environmental racism. I encourage you to look it up. It's not a made-up ideology. It's a real thing. So I think he's making a point with that. However, what is the issue that we're talking about, and what is the solution? Even when we talk about fast food restaurants, when we have food deserts in communities that are disenfranchised and they're having to eat more fast food, how is that being connected to cancer? So those are all real things, that we push for.
Our hair products, relaxers.
All of that.
Okay.
Yep.
And lastly, I just want to give an update on Diddy. He was trying to get his trial delayed by 2 months. Well, a federal judge today denied that request. They were trying to have more time to prepare their defense, but the jury selection in the trial will begin on May 5th as scheduled. So that is still going to continue. All right. And that is your Yee Tea. And when we come back, it is a Friday. So you know what happens on Fridays. New music comes out. Tez, we're going to find out what you're listening to, but we're going to let the people know what should you be listening to this weekend. What should you be listening to today? We'll tell you what's coming out. It's Way Up.